Welcome back to the current review, the second section of the 16th episode of the current review. I am Thamsanqa Tu, otherwise known as TT. I am with Tebogo Kotsi from the Unsaid Podcast. I am from the TT hookup. Tebza, I don't know about you, man, but you know my podcast, the TT hookup, is getting quite a lot of views, but I'm not getting the subscription numbers that I want.
Is it?
And one of the reasons for that is that you yourself have not subscribed to the TT hookup. Mr. Phiwe Mathe has not subscribed to the TT hookup. And we talk about them a lot there, and they don't get to hear what we're saying about them. So after this, please go and subscribe there.
I feel bad. I will.
Yeah, I subscribe to the Unsaid Podcast, by the way. Phiwe, welcome to the current review. I think we're engaging with you for the second time.
Yes.
First time this year. Congratulations to the ANC and the ANC Youth League on the celebration of the 112th anniversary since the formation of the ANC. And compliments of the new year. That is for you, Mr. Mathe.
Compliments to you too, Mr. TT. Let me then also greet our viewers and also welcome Mr. Tebogo Kotsi, or rather greet him, because I'm not the host today, maybe it's because I've been here a couple of times, so I feel like I'm part of the family. But thank you for having us.
Yes, would like to speak to you as an individual, Phiwe Mathe and his individual views, but unfortunately, you would always be representative of other things that are a part of you, most especially the organization from which you come, the ANC and the ANC Youth League. So do not be surprised if majority of our engagement with you is around that. But today our focus is mainly on the January 8th statement of the ANC, its content, and what it means for young people generally in 2024 and the years to come. And the perspective of the ANC Youth League. I understand that you may have not had the opportunity to sit down after the ANC, after the statement as the ANC Youth League to interrogate, but you may have general views as to what has been the perspective of the Youth League on some of the issues mentioned in the January 8th statement. So be prepared for that kind of engagement, as I know that you always are. So the first thing that I want us to look at is the ANC's acknowledgement of the fact that young people have played a very important role in shaping the democratic order and their contributions to social issues, as mentioned above. How does the ANC Youth League feel about such an acknowledgement by the ANC?
No, thanks, TT. I think the acknowledgement in itself is something that is born from facts. I think we can also trace, the historical evolution of the struggle against apartheid and also the evolution of the ANC and the role that young people have played, different generations of young people that have contributed substantively to where the ANC is today, and in shaping the program of action of the ANC, because the contribution also is a contribution that is measurable, not only at the level of, when you look at the massification of the struggle by young people, but also in terms of the policy perspective of the ANC. You will note the generation of the Youth League, the first generation of the Youth League of 1944, which influenced largely the armed struggle and the policy of the ANC when it came to the resistance of the apartheid regime, right down to the recruitment of people that were required in order to give the armed struggle life. And you look at also the struggles of the student movement as well, that kept the home fires burning when the organization was banned together with the SACP under the Suppression of Communism Act, the role that young people gathered in various civic formations and even student organizations were able to play in terms of ensuring that the struggle continues, as it were to say, hence the slogan, "A luta continua." And you look at, beyond, look at the current generation of the Fees Must Fall generation, you look at other generations, successive generations of the Youth League, and even around the struggle for the call of economic freedom as well, you find young people at the forefront. So it is indeed an honest and frank and factual acknowledgement by the ANC, and it is commendable, it is notable. However, the argument on the other end would also be to say, even though it has been acknowledged, but has it been demonstrated in terms of enabling or granting young people the necessary space for them to be able to influence the ANC? So that is in itself is a debate currently on whether the role of young people has indeed been acknowledged insofar as them being granted space when it comes to state institutions, and how much space are they given, how much leverage have they been given. And even when it comes to issues of succession as well, you would note that the president of the Youth League has spoken about the need for youthful ministers. He has spoken about the need for more youthful, NEC of the ANC, which to some degree has been achieved, because would know that the ANC is not necessarily an ageist organization. It is an organization that believes in a principle of generational mix. It seeks to harness all the energies of the different generations for the benefit of the struggle and the organization. But, there's been a call, persistent call, by the Youth League, and rightfully so, to say that it's time that young people are given a much more greater responsibility in terms of carrying the struggle forward, because indeed the future that is spoken of is a future in which young people are going to feature in. So allow them space to be able to shape it. So it is really indeed an issue for debate, but we acknowledge the statement. It's a good one. But when you look at it on the flip side, given the points that I've raised, some would argue that it's just a mere rhetoric because it's there in the annals of history and you have to acknowledge it. But whether you've given it practical expression, it's another debate as well. But those are some of the internal issues and the issues that come out sharply by the Youth League.
And the ANC statement also mentions the achievements in empowering women and increasing their participation in the organization and other structures. Now, how does the ANC Youth League work to ensure that there is proper gender inclusivity and empowerment of young women within its own structures, and this filtrating to other sectors of society?
Well, indeed, you would know that the Youth League is also a league of the ANC. So it cannot necessarily define itself outside of the ANC from a policy point of view, and largely in terms of some of its functions and some of the progressive steps that the ANC has taken to, ensuring that gender equality or gender representation is something that is entrenched. The Youth League has done so. The Youth League does also have a policy or clause within its constitution that sets, the equality and representation of females within leadership structures as a priority. It has gone to that extent. It has also championed largely, when it comes to the issue of a representation of not only different genders, but also representation of the other communities that have come. There's one key thing that has emerged in recently, which has been taken by the ANC, is that representation of the LGBTQI plus community as well. So I think the Youth League has really been accommodative of that. And even if you look at some of the graduates of the Youth League, because the Youth League is also a preparatory school of the ANC, there are quite a number of women leaders that have emerged from the structure that have been able to go on and lead in government. So the ANC Youth League has also been at the forefront in terms of championing struggles against gender-based violence, in terms of also defending children's rights. So it's a space where it has played a great role and continues to play a great role with the collaboration with the other leagues, such as the Women's League and other formations as well. So there's a very strong emphasis around that when it comes to that. However, there is also a perspective that we need to be able to, in the context of what we're experiencing currently, and I can bring it closer to home, around the kidnapping and the killing of young females, or human trafficking as well. We also believe that there needs to be greater, management of this process, or harsher measures that can be imposed on perpetrators of this. Largely, the argument would say that there's an immigration crisis in South Africa, and it has been found that a lot of the human trafficking that is happening is as a result of some of these migratory patterns, where you find people that actually use young girls in order to transport them to foreign lands so that they're able to get money out of that and put them in situations where their lives are in danger, related to other activities of criminality or drug trafficking and so forth. There needs to be much more stronger interventions in terms of, protecting the girl child and creating more opportunities for the girl child to ensure that they do not fall victim to such things, going forward in the future. And one of the key interventions out of that, besides the issue of policing and regulations, we spoke about opportunities. It's very important that we create enough opportunities for young people, especially females, to be able to play a much more greater role in the economy and not be limited to that.
The other thing that was spoken about in the speech is the importance of education and the ANC's commitment towards that goal of getting like higher levels of literacy and getting as many young people as possible enrolled in institutions of higher learning and getting our nation an educated nation. Now, what is the ANC's Youth League's role in encouraging young people to get into these institutions of higher learning and actually get opportunities or take opportunities of learning which are provided for by this democracy?
Well, as you are well aware that there's currently what is called the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, which seeks to deal with the cost barriers into higher education, especially for students that come from disadvantaged backgrounds. We also having a program that we champion at the beginning of each and every year through one of our alliance partners, which is the South African Students Congress, which is called the Right to Learn campaign, where, the South African Students Congress, which is the student arm, I would say, of the PYA, which is the Progressive Youth Alliance, which is an alliance with the Youth League. It seeks to ensure that all barriers that are there in institutions of higher learning that prevent learners or whatever difficulties that are there are eliminated, and thus improving the management or the transition and the experience of learners in higher education, and also democratizing higher education. So insofar as ensuring that we have that, there's campaigns such as the Right to Learn campaign. There's other initiatives that are being championed by the Youth League in terms of provision of, bursaries and unlocking opportunities through various government institutions, your SETAs, which are obviously also great drivers of assisting young people going through employment and eventually finding permanent employment, and also training. They also provide a lot of assistance in terms with regards to that. So it is also, mobilizing stakeholders, as widely as possible to be able to contribute to this thing. And that is where I think the role of the Youth League has been quite substantive and can be quite felt when working with its alliance partner, which is the South African Students Congress. However, it does not imply that, the problem has been completely solved, because you would know that the problem with our higher education system is that, as it has been classically defined, it's like a revolving door. You solve one issue, but the issue still continues. It is a sector that is still undergoing a lot of transformation, and it is a sector that also needs quite a lot of work. And it is a sector where we as the Youth League have also believed that young people can play a much, much greater role, given the experience that they've gained from institutions of higher learning, in ensuring that the higher education system works well. There's also a problem of expanding our higher education.
I'm saying while we're on this, you absolutely have a right to say what you like and write what you like, but right now we do not all have the right to speak for as long as we want.
Okay. That's perfect.
But you're going well. want us to say, like, for at this on around the accusations leveled against the Minister of Higher Education with regards to the corruption happening at nsfas. Is there any view, given the fact that there are allegations leveled at the minister who's who's also a member of your party?
Yeah, indeed, the allegations have been made. However, as you would know, that he who alleges needs to prove, and that should be proven in the courts of law and not in the courts of public opinion, because the evidence that is alleged to be there is quite damning and very serious evidence. And we believe that the organization that claims that it has that evidence should rightfully, because it also has a duty, to take that to the relevant law enforcement authorities, have it tested, and let it be proven. Aside from that, there are issues.
Would it be incorrect, therefore, for us to believe that it would be correct for the minister to step aside while these allegations have been proven or disproven?
At this current point in time, like I stated, that the organization called Alta has gone out into the media and claimed that this is what they have. Such as thus far, only thing that we have is a claim. We're not even sure even if they have those tapes. So this could merely be a witch hunt. So saying that the minister should step aside based on something that could very much be false, and whether they can even be able to verify whether it is indeed the voice of the minister and the voice of the chairperson that is there, that there's a lot of technicalities that need to be done there. But the policy of the ANC is quite clear when it comes to dealing with corruption and stepping aside. It does speak to the fact that once there are allegations and there are charges, or it has been reported to a court of law, only then can the process begin to follow. It is not really based on hearsay or rumors. So at this point in time, this organization has gone to the media, but it has not yet gone back to the country to say that we have fulfilled our responsibility as an organization that believes that there's an element of corruption and we want to take this forward to the relevant law enforcement authorities. So that's when I believe that this can also begin to kick in, whereas the minister will then have to go and answer formally on these charges that have been leveled against the minister. Like I stated initially, it's not really for us to judge it.
I'm asking.
Before you enter that Kotsi, Gwede Mantashe once made a remark that when you open the windows for fresh air, there is bound to be some flies that will come in to disturb. That is just like that last question I asked you, because it was not in the plans of this particular issue. It just came through. But there's another one that will follow up, which sort of speaks to what we've just spoken about, although it is not this one was definitely in our questions. The statement also emphasizes on the need for ethical leadership and accountability. Now, how does the ANC Youth League work to instill ethical practices amongst its own members?
No, for sure. You need ethical leadership. But the view is that it's not, everything rises and falls on leadership, but at the same time, we must also acknowledge the role that is played by those who are tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that our policies get implemented, and that is the administrators themselves. Because the nexus of corruption within the public service, and we can also extend it to the private sector as well, is that on the one hand, you've got somebody who would want to corrupt you, or somebody who would want to bribe you, but there should also be, on the other hand, somebody who would want to comply, and that would be the corruptee. So there's a relationship that is there, and that is what we need to dismantle. So in as much as you can have an ethical leadership and call for ethical leadership, there should also be a focus on also building an ethical bureaucracy, and that is behind also some of the successes of most developmental states if you look across the world. If you have an ethical, public service, and if you've got a patriotic public service, you'll notice that a lot of things in the country begin to work. In South Africa, we have a problem of not only a public service that lacks patriotism in certain respects, but there's also examples of public servants that are not necessarily ethical, on top of there being a problem of leadership. But I agree that you need leaders that will drive that agenda. But our argument is that it does not only end there. We need to deal with the entire ecosystem, because it does not only rest on those who are leaders that come each and every 5 years. It's also important to deal with those that are full-time in the administration, that are permanent, that have to ensure that these policies get live beyond a political organization or beyond a certain political leader who would have served their term. So it is absolutely important. And that is why, structures such as the Youth League, which is a preparatory school of the ANC, is where these things should begin and these things should start. And in the Youth League, there's quite a very comprehensive political education program that is currently being rolled out by the NEC of the ANC Youth League, which will filter down to provinces. That also contains these things. Also, there's other interventions as well, like the OR Tambo School of Leadership, that has within its curriculum where it deals with these kinds of elements. But insofar as, you can have rules, you can have a curriculum that is good, but unfortunately, those principles and curriculums do not walk the street. They need to be able to find expression. So you need leaders that will be able to understand that and also ingrain that among our people as well. So no doubt, we do need ethical leaders. We do need ethical public servants for this country to be able to work.
For this, and I was actually okay. I was recalling my question. I have only 3 questions, to be honest. Phiwe, in your honest thought, or how can I put it, opinion, has the ANC been fair to the young generation of this country? Number 1, do you believe do you think for the ANC has confidence in young people of this country? And do you think there will ever be a day where the ANC will admit at its wrongdoings? Just those 3.
Let's start with number 3.
Okay.
The ANC is always acknowledging its wrongdoings at all times. The ANC has acknowledged its wrongdoings. The ANC has apologized, because the ANC is an organization that is accountable to the people. That is why from time to time, you will see leaders of the ANC going to communities to engage with communities, calling what are called imbizos, or community meetings, where they are, speaking to the people and they're answerable to the people. So where wrong has been done, the ANC has always acknowledged wrong, and the ANC has always tried to correct its wrongs. The unfortunate part is that for an organization of its size, there will be elements that would want to, distract the ANC. There would be elements within the ANC that create or tarnish the image of the ANC. And that is what, for the past couple of years, since the Nasrec resolution, the ANC has taken a conscious effort at coming up with mechanisms at how to deal with members of the ANC that bring the name of the ANC into disrepute. Because largely that has also been a problem within the ANC. And you would know the ANC has come up with structures such as the Integrity Commission, it has come up with the policy of step aside for those who are in public service. So in terms of it acknowledging its wrongdoing, I think it is among the most honest political organizations that you find here in South Africa in terms of being accountable to the people. You'll never hear the DA saying that they got certain things wrong in the Western Cape. I mean, for example, if you look at currently what is happening, and I'll bring something relevant because right now it's that period where this is being tested. You look at admissions to schools in the Western Cape. Right now, there's an issue of schools in the Western Cape where a lot of our Black African people want to get their children admitted into a lot of the schools in the Western Cape, they are told about a policy of quotas, that they cannot admit a certain number of young people. Yet, the reality of the matter is that in South Africa, education is a right. The reality of the matter in South Africa is that it does not say that you're only entitled to education insofar as it is qualified in terms of whether there's X, Y, Z. Education is a basic right. And that is why you find that in a lot of the schools in our townships, owing to a number of factors, there's population growth in our townships. You'll find that infrastructure that is there, schools and clinics that were existing only accommodated a certain number. Now that the populations have grown, you'll find that these schools become, overcrowded. But it is out of an understanding that there's a basic principle here that you cannot deny someone education, So you find organizations that do not want to acknowledge their wrongs, that still want to stick to a principle that really goes against the mere fabric of the Constitution. So I was using that example to show you that this is an organization that is honest and admits its wrongdoing. Number two, you asked whether the ANC has been fair on young people. I think to a great extent, the ANC has been fair on young people. The ANC has a dedicated policy focus for young people. The ANC has even created a ministry of young people in government. When you go to our municipalities, there's a youth office. You've got youth development officers that are interested and catering for the affairs of young people. The question should really be that, given all these interventions that the ANC has made, have young people met the ANC halfway? Now, I don't want us to generalize when we speak about young people, because indeed, there are examples of young people that have used these opportunities that have been created by the ANC government. And there's examples of them where they've been able to succeed. But there's also a large contingent of young people that have fallen through the cracks that we have missed, And that is why I think that we cannot necessarily level that against the ANC. We should ask our communities to also assist the ANC in being able to reach those young people that it otherwise was not able to reach, that have fallen through the cracks. So to a large extent, I think that it has been fair. But I really think that when it comes to young people, a nation that does not care for its youth is a nation that does not deserve its future. Our communities really need to start stepping up when it comes to, how we appreciate and how we ensure that young people are protected within our spaces. Mm-hmm. So in terms of your second question with regards to confidence in young people, I think for the longest time it has demonstrated confidence in young people. But the issue really now is that how far can it go, in terms of bringing in young people? Now we know there's the argument about there being a lot of old people in our government, old people in parliament. Now, the question here is, how far can we go? Are we prepared to have a parliament? For example, let's say out of 400 seats, we can have 300, seats dedicated to young people. Is that how far we're willing to go? But there's also another question on the flip side to say, are we not creating an impression that seeks to say that in South Africa, when you're an elder, when you're older at a certain age, you are therefore useless. You can't contribute, So we always need to be able to bring across that balancing act. So for me, the main question is how far are we willing to go to bring young people on board? Are we maintaining the balancing act, or are we going, to take young people as they are? Because we must not assume that just because you are young, you are wiser and you are more revolutionary and you're more competent and you are more capable, So we shouldn't make that mistake of trying to make everything about age. Let everything be about what contribution can we make, but we must always be mindful that there's young people that will need to carry on, the tradition that is there.
No,
it's fair. The ANC was very vocal, Mhlekazi, on this thing of youth representation in all sectors of our economy and in government. And there was a time when you guys were advocating very strongly for youth directorates in departments, in municipalities, and so on. Is that still the view of the ANC? You think that there has to be this kind of directorates in municipalities, in government departments, and so on? And if so, how how well implemented is this? Perhaps a resolution of the ANC Youth League.
Yeah, I'll speak on the issue of the implementation, because there's a lot of evidence that we can draw to the fact that we do have these things that are existing. But the implementation part is where we are finding a lot of problems, because it's pointless to have a youth, development officer whose budget is still controlled by, one particular office, which is the office of the executive mayor. You do need, for us to be serious about the youth development agenda, we need to have resources that are dedicated and resources that should be controlled and specifically derived for youth development programs. And also the importance of accountability as well, because it's difficult for a lot of, for our government to be able to quantify how much they've spent on youth development. So I think that's the most critical thing. If we can be able to say that for a country this size or a municipality this size, let there be at least 10 to 15% that can be spent on youth development programs solely, then we'll be able to quantify how much is it that we're contributing to youth development, and be able to see what is it that needs to be done, or whether the strategies that we're implementing are effective or not. Currently, the problem is that we're not taking that approach when it comes to that implementation. There's just a few programs here and there that are said to be youth-orientated. There's also a dedicated month where you have youth-related or youth-orientated programs, but none of these things are quantified. And no one asked the question about what has been the developmental impact of some of these things. Produce evidence, and you should be able to quantify it. And it's important for government to have that kind of approach when it comes to youth development. We can say even down to your municipalities and even provincial governments, and have a standalone youth development directorate that is dedicated to that. One of the reasons why we also need to have a standalone youth directorate program is that into youth development programs must not be approached in a generic fashion, with common sense. To say, there's a problem of substance abuse, so let's come up with an anti-substance abuse, so that they're able to bring that knowledge back into it and be able to improve the implementation of youth development programs. So the call to have these, example, you look at HR, for example. With HR, people get to go and study HR. People get to have insights into HR. There are systems that are developed. There's strategies that are developed on how to improve workplace performance. We don't have that when it comes to youth development. So once we have a directorate and it's taken seriously, I think we'll be able then to bring. We'll be having a completely different conversation when it comes to issues of youth development.
And the statement also spoke about the need to end the crisis in the country. Now, how does the ANC Youth League view the impact of energy constraints on economic opportunities for young entrepreneurs, and what solutions does it propose?
We all know that number one of the reasons why South Africa is a destination for investment is because energy here in South Africa, compared to most countries around the world, is cheap. Of money for energy because of how we generate energy and the cost at which we generate it at. Now, when having load shedding, it's costing businesses because businesses are, and that creates a very serious problem for us as a country. So we really need to resolve the energy crisis. But also, there's the opportunity now that exists with the conventional means in which we've been creating energy or generating energy in South Africa. There has to be an energy mix. And when we transition into the alternative energy, we must do country, because a lot of things are dependent on how we're generating energy and the sources of energy that we have. So the energy action plan that is currently being pushed by our government is a very good plan, but we need to give it greater confidence so that it is able to end load shedding. And we have opportunities for young people to enter into the green energy space that requires our government to also invest in youth-led enterprises on how we are able to generate alternative means of energy. Where the capacity, we substitute what we import and we industrialize it locally so that you create more opportunities for young people. Whether it is wind energy, we should be able to industrialize. The TVET sector is very critical because we know that our TVET sector is primarily anchored on programs that are vocational, that are there for training to and incubate them so that they are able to contribute to the solutions. So without a doubt, the energy crisis is costing our country. We need a solution right now, but that solution must also include young people and inclusion of young people there.
And I think one of the most important crises that is the crisis of economics. Like our economic situation contributes to many other problems that we're having as a country. Now, as a province, we have, I think, another other one is there. But as the ANC is faced with the problem of economics in the province and enterprise development, I think, as you have referred in your previous reply, that's to say, how can you develop programs which may benefit young people to take advantage of the problems that we have in the space of the economy of the Free State?
Yeah. The working committee of the Youth League met with the chairperson of the ANC, who's also the premier, and there's an agreement that there needs to be sessions where various members or MECs that hold respective portfolios can come and engage with the Youth League, as it is being done with our NEC. You've noticed that our NEC has already
sorry, man, I don't know if there seems to be like some unfriendly feedback coming from your side.
My side. Is it better now?
As you speak.
Okay. Is it better?
No, but it's fine. I think we can continue.
Is it fine? Okay. Yeah. So I was pointing out that our NEC has already started with the process, and we in the Free State as well are going to start initiating it this year, where we're going to have sessions with each and every NEC to hear what is it that they are doing in terms of the overall program, but particularly our interest is around young people. Generic issues would be around the representation of young people in your departments and the critical areas in which they are working in, such as your senior management level, your middle management, and even at your junior level staff. What empowerment programs are there for junior staff that are mainly young people? And also, more importantly, how much are being spent towards programs in line with the departmental mandate that are of service or of benefit to young people. For example, we can look at agriculture. When it comes to agriculture, we want to know how many young farmers, are being supported through the various interventions and various programs. What are the targets of the department in terms of how many young people do they want to train and attract into the agricultural sector? We'd also want to see how much support is being provided, to young people that are in agribusiness, as well. And we can also do this to other departments as well. You spoke about your Department of Tourism.
No, I think tourism. We're struggling now to hear you because of that feedback sound. Okay. But I just want you to conclude very quickly, 30 seconds, on the message of the ANC Youth League to those who are beginning school tomorrow.
Our message to those who are beginning schools tomorrow is precisely, you've got your grade ones, but that much of an issue. We have a problem here in South Africa that a lot of people that enter grade one do not eventually end up going through the entire schooling system and finishing matric. We want to urge young people to ensure that they support each other, and that they also ensure that they align themselves with the support of parents as well, to ensure that they dedicate themselves towards the schooling, because in South Africa, what's very critical is that we need to have an educated workforce. We need to have an educated and we need to have a skilled workforce, but you have to be literate and numerate at a basic level for you to be able to be a contributor to the economy and also be able to be a receiver of all the opportunities that is there. Second to that in our message is that communities need to protect school infrastructure. School infrastructure is very critical. It is infrastructure that enables the process of learning to happen, and we must guard it against any sort of elements or criminal elements that are there, and we must always lend a hand where possible. The third one and the last one is for us as communities to play a role within our schools. We must be part of these SGBs. You know, we must always be part of checking what is the correct order of the school, checking about the conduct of these schools, and checking what is it that is being done, that is being corrected, and assisting in general, whichever way that we can as members of the community. So that's what we want to encourage young people to do, to ensure that learning happens in an environment that is safe and that there are no interruptions, that they must play a role as activists of the National Democratic Revolution to ensure that young people as motive forces of our revolution are able to benefit from the democratic gains of our revolution.
Thank you very much, Phiwe Mathe of the ANC and the ANC Youth League, speaking his own opinions and sometimes speaking opinions of the organizations that he represents. It's a good combination. We should be allowed to be both individuals and representatives of, of things that we think are part of us. Good luck for the rest of the year, and we will continue to engage with you and pick your brains on this or that issue. We are out, but we will. I think we'll engage with you in the background before you log out. But for now, we're out.